All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining today for Better Moisture Management. It's presented by Tony Stahl at MTI. We're going to give folks a few moments to join. I'll go over a few housekeeping items, and then we'll go ahead and get started with today's presentation. All right, looks like we've got a good amount of folks jumping in already. So thank you everyone again who's just joining now. My name is Bo. I'm coming from Acelab. We're helping out with hosting today's event. Very excited to bring you this event from the MTI team. Before we start off, just want to share a few quick housekeeping items. So we will have probably some time for questions towards the end of today's presentation. Feel free to submit any questions or comments to the Q&A as we go along. If we don't get to your question today, we'll have a record of it so we can follow up with you after today's event. Also, keep your eyes peeled for some helpful links, which I'll share in the chat. We will share a link to the MTI page on Acelab. From there, you'll be able to see more information about some of the product solutions that we're going to cover today, access resources like downloads, as well as get in touch with the MTI team directly. Last thing from me, we will give you the option to let our team know if you would like to be connected with today's presenters so that you can receive some more follow-up information after the webinar. If you select that you would like to be connected, we will go ahead and make a conversation for you on your Acelab account. We should have some time towards the end of the presentation where I'll give you a quick tour on where to find those conversations. You're also going to receive an email notification about any new messages coming through Acelab. You can respond directly to those emails and it'll log in our platform as well. So you won't need to open the platform, but it's a great resource if you haven't given it a full walkthrough yet. So we'll be happy to share a little bit more information on that after today's presentation. All right, without further ado, I am very excited to hand it over to Tony Stahl. Tony is going to be today's presenter. He's got over 30 years of experience in the building envelope and rain screen sector. He's put together a really great presentation to share with you today. So Tony, whenever you're ready, feel free to go ahead and get started.
Okay, Bo, thank you very much, and welcome to everyone. The title of our presentation today is Better Moisture Management, and specifically we're relating this discussion to the exterior wall above grade cavity, which would exist between the air and weather barrier and the back of the cladding. We talk about moisture management because it's probably the most significant challenge that many architects and designers face when faced with the challenge of designing virtually any kind of structure. Many people will say that the most important thing is to keep water out of the wall and out of the building, but we might argue from practical experience that the most challenging thing really is getting the moisture out of the wall once it gets in, for a variety of reasons. And that's the business that MTI Dry is focused upon. It really is a case of there is a need, and our company has been focused for quite some time on inventing solutions to this challenge. As Bo said, I have a wide variety of experience for over 30 years in sales, marketing, and business development roles within the exterior building envelope industry. Much of my experience is with a company called Drive It Systems, which is an EIFS product. I've also have business development and sales experience in the stucco industry, in the concrete industry, and now, interestingly enough, in the moisture management industry, which of course is a challenge to all of those other industries. I wish I knew now what I knew then. I should say that in reverse. I wish I knew then what I know now. I know a lot more about getting water out of a building than I used to. And hopefully we can share some of these thoughts with you all today. This is our agenda. Some of the things that this was a CEU, it would say, what are you going to learn today? But we're going to talk a little bit about MTI and who we are. We're going to talk about the science behind the need for drainage in the wall cavity. A little bit about the importance of weeps and integrating weeps with drainage mat, because if you move water down the wall, you've got to be able to get it out of the wall. Some tips on incorporation with different cladding types. There may be some time for Q&A, but as Bo suggested, and I hope you will take advantage of, we are available for you technically as a resource, and we'll review the ways that we can help you with that after the call at a future date. So let's get started on who MTI Dry actually is. MTI is an acronym that stands for Masonry Technology Incorporated. The company was founded 40 years ago by this gentleman. His name is John Custer. He was a veteran of the Vietnam War. He came back home to Minneapolis, got a Mason's card, went into the bricklaying business. And he soon discovered that bricklaying is very hard work, but where his real passion lay was creating ways to make the mason's job easier. So he literally started inventing products in his garage, drawing them up, figuring out how to make them, and he was selling them out of the garage for several years. And his premise was all about the mission of enabling claddings to perform better, and in this case, brick and masonry, by providing simple and effective cavity drainage solutions. So we were born in the masonry business, but today our products are used extensively under not only masonry and stone, but brick, stucco, eaves, and also siding of all types, whether it's wood, fiber cement, in various configurations. So it's a fairly ubiquitous product category, used more and more widely in all types of construction. And we've been at it for a long time. And importantly, today, John is still, though semi-retired at 77, actively engaged in designing new products, building the equipment to manufacture them, and having a technical interest in helping architects or other stakeholders in the construction industry to solve their individual problems. So he is still a resource we draw on, and he still has his dog. So what is MTI Dry? MTI, we are a manufacturer, and we were, as I said, born and raised in Minnesota, and we are now operating from a 50,000 square foot facility in Iowa, a little town of Cresco, which is in the northeast corner of Iowa. It's close to a town some of you may have heard of, which is called Decorah, and that's about 2 hours south of Minneapolis. Centrally located in the U.S., all products are sourced and assembled in the United States. We're not subject to tariffs, which is something I had to add to the slide this morning, unfortunately. Our products are, as I say, all manufactured, assembled, and shipped from this facility in the picture, and we are shipped nationwide through a network of building material distributors. Those can be found on our website under our dealer locator. Iowa is a great place to manufacture because it's in the center of the country, and it provides easy access to all of our major domestic markets. Our product range includes a wide variety of products from drainage mats and weep accessories. As I said, they are designed and created for specific use behind certain types of siding. And some are, and we operate on a really what we would call a good, better, best philosophy in order to provide price point alternatives for each solution. A little background on MTI and who we are. We were rebranded as MTI just in the past year in order to make sure that when people Google drainage mats and they're Googling stucco or Googling siding or Googling eaves, they don't exclude us because of the word Masonry Technology in our name. So we've adapted our name to an acronym so as to be more approachable and attractive to the digital ways where people will locate sources of materials. So what's a rain screen? We're going to throw some terms around, and if everybody's on the same page, it helps. You can read the slide. It's an assembly applied to an exterior wall consisting of an outer layer, an inner layer, and a cavity between them, sufficient for the passive removal of liquid water and water vapor. That is the rain screen itself. It serves a secondary function of providing ventilation for that same cavity. The outer layer is the cladding. That's what you see on the building. That's the stucco or the brick or the siding itself. The inner layer is the air and weather resistive barrier, which could be a sheet good or a liquid applied product. The cavity is the space between the two. The function of the rain screen is to effect passive removal of incidental moisture and water vapor, and typically by two methods, gravity and airflow. Ideally, drainage mats and weeps would not be necessary because all systems would be face sealed and never suffer any kind of degradation caused by building movement or thermal inefficiency or cracks or sealant that wears out or any of the other million reasons why water can ultimately go around a waterproof cladding and get into a wall. So they're simply necessary because of the way buildings are designed and need to be maintained and the practical inefficiencies of some of the products involved. It's simply reality. Buildings are also not maintained as well or as they're intended to be maintained or as frequently as they're intended to be maintained. Sealants aren't repaired or replaced. And so claddings essentially become not waterproof. And in reality, no wall assembly is waterproof. And if it is initially, it doesn't stay that way for very long. Air and weather barriers alone, while preventing moisture from becoming in contact with the substrate, they don't provide drainage or ventilation effectively. And the reason really is because an air and weather barrier has the inability to keep a consistent 1/8 inch gap between its surface and the backside of the cladding. So the cavity is the key element in draining and ventilating effectively an exterior wall assembly. You have to keep that minimum of 1/8 or 3 millimeters. That's per John Straub and many building scientists who agree that because of the capillary action of water, if the gap is less than 1/8 of an inch, the water itself can hang up on one side or the other and not drain effectively. So the consistent gap at a minimum of 1/8 is necessary. And in many cases, you'll see that gap widen to 6 millimeters or 10 millimeters, depending on the type of cladding used and the necessities to ventilate perhaps more effectively. The wider the gap, the more ventilation takes place. And ventilation is obviously a key element in drying out the wall cavity itself. A number of different technologies have emerged in order to do this. Essentially, they all have to fall over the bar of ASTM E2273, which is a minimum standard for drainage performance. It was a test originally designed for EIFS in the late 90s, but it's been applied now to all types of drainage behind all claddings. And unless you can get a minimum of 90% of the water out of the wall that enters the wall, you can't pass the test. Important thing to remember here is that this is a very low bar for performance. If you have 100 gallons of water going to your wall and only 90 gallons come out, many would argue that that's not very effective drainage. So it is well to consider the actual drainage performance on an ASTM E2273 for individual components within the cavity that are touted as drainage mats or effective means of drainage. And you've got to have, if you have a drainage mat or some kind of medium in the cavity, you also need a weep at the bottom of the wall and ventilation at the top of the wall. It's not going to work effectively unless you have both. And it's well to consider when you're specifying these types of products, you know, what products companies offer and do they work effectively and do they marry with each other well. They should be designed that way, and it's important to keep that in your consideration when you're writing specifications. So just to review the function of a drainage mat, again, it's to maintain consistent cavity. We talked about separate the air and weather resistant barrier with the cladding. It also can aid in pressure equalization, which has benefits, especially when you've got vapor drive, enhanced vapor drive, either from outside to in or inside to out. It enhances the ventilation of the wall. It provides or can provide a condensation surface so that based on your WUFI analysis of the cavity and the exterior wall assembly and temperature changes as they take place, you may find that condensation could occur on the drainage mat, which would be an ideal situation. You'd rather have it occurring in the cavity than in the cladding or in the insulation. Another consideration of the performance of a drainage mat and how you design your wall. It's also an easy and effective interface with other wall details, and it needs to be properly coordinated to that extent. So let's talk about a little bit about the technologies used to manufacture a drainage mat. I mean, there are different ways to do this, and the three basic ways are what we call on the left-hand side a tangled filament, which looks like it looks like fishing line that's all tangled up, and it's rolled out into a more or less consistently thick 5-6 millimeter spacer, for lack of a better term. Another way to do it is through what might be called dots and dimples. If you look at the drawing in the center, the black trapezoidal shapes located outside the sheathing and underneath the veneer, those could represent dots and dimples in your system, which you may have seen these types of designs. The water in either of these two cases has to find its way down the wall, down the cavity, around or through the drainage material itself. In a channel configuration, which would be the third primary technology used, a corrugated pattern of drainage mat would be placed in the wall, which many would argue would clog the cavity least of the three types of technologies. Importantly here, and I'm going to make a point for MTI. MTI utilizes the channel technology in all of our drainage mats and weeps because we believe, again, that we're putting less material in the cavity, and that's going to offer better opportunity for actual drainage of the water itself rather than impeding it or allowing it to flow in a direct channel straight down the wall and out the bottom. What are weeps? Everybody probably knows what weeps are. They're holes at the bottom of the wall that allow water to drain out from behind it. They're common in all types of cladding. They're necessary in all types of cladding. And they can incorporate a number of different methods and technologies to, again, allow for the passage of water from inside the wall to outside the building. Different companies offer different types of technologies. Many offer that type of tangled filament type product. MTI offers a channeled product, and we offer a number of channeled products or metal accessories that are applicable to different types of wall systems. You always want the weep at the bottom of the wall, at the lowest point of the wall, because that's where the water is going to end up. You want it to be as least impeded or have the least potential to be impeded by mortar and other elements that may exist in the wall, especially when it's being installed. Mortar can fall down when it's brick or stone being installed and clog weeps if there aren't enough of them, or if they're not well positioned. So again, you're going to have different types of weeps for different cladding types. All of our weeps at MTI will marry appropriately with our drainage mats to form a system of drainage and ventilation, which is going to keep your cavity dry. The thing to remember, if you take anything away from this, is that MTI has you covered. Exterior walls above grade in the cavity, or also we're not going to talk about it very much, but we do offer products for basement waterproofing and crawl space drying, either for new construction or remodeling. It's a different element of our business, but it applies the same type of technology and science to getting the water that's there and is formed through condensation down the wall, across the threshold, and into the gravel, in this case, where the sump pump can pick it up and get it out of the basement. Many parts of the country utilize basements in design, and in most of those parts of the country, wet basements are a problem. So MTI is a resource potentially for you with that, and we're happy to address those issues accordingly. Just going to take a drink. How we doing on time, Bo?
We're doing great. We're at about 1:20.
Okay, great. So just, to hammer some points home, we at MTI understand the technology of draining moisture out of the wall behind all types of cladding. And there are certain types of essential elements to consider when you're designing with different claddings. Again, we're happy to help you with that. But, just refreshing memories and going through some of these very quickly. Brick and other types of masonry are called reservoir claddings. Moisture enters them from the outside of the building and is retained in them. And if you get enough moisture, it's going to work its way through to the inside of the wall material itself. You need a cavity wide enough to allow that moisture to get down the wall and also drain. Often you'll see a brick cavity of an inch or even a little bit more. The reason for that isn't so much for ventilation as it is so that the mason can adequately do his job. The important thing is to keep the cavity clear and consistent, and to utilize enough weeps at the bottom at all shelf angles, lintels, and ledges. And again, the appropriate weep method that fits in with the cavity design and with the moisture drainage medium that's utilized in the cavity itself. MTI has a unique opportunity to provide a 16-inch wide drainage mat that's installed horizontally so as to fit conveniently between the shelf angles. That's something the masons find extremely beneficial rather than having to poke holes through wider mats. They can use our 16-inch wide varieties for that reason. Thin brick and stone, pretty much the same as brick. It's a reservoir cladding. The material, the water soaks through them. You're going to want to install a drainage mat between the lath and the scratch coat that's installed on the lath before the masonry veneer adhesive is used to attach the cladding to it. So you've got your drainage mat underneath the lath, underneath the scratch coat, and of course behind all elements of this siding type. Again, rule number one, use a continuous and predictably wide drainage mat over the entire wall surface. Some designs in our industry, just as an aside, some people offer strips that they say will also, and these strips could be applied as furring strips over studs, for example. Not going to do as good a job because that allows the cladding to pillow or settle into these gaps between the strips. Best to use a continuous drainage mat with a continuously thick or wide gap. Again, at least 3 millimeters, preferably 6. And in many cases in the stone industry, we're finding that now a 10 millimeter gap is requested and sometimes even code approved in order to ensure maximum ventilation behind these reservoir cladding type systems. And don't forget the ventilation at the top of the wall, because if the ventilation has to come in through the weeps, go up the mat and out the top, and vice versa. Full bed stone falls into that same category, except it's thicker stone. Again, it's a reservoir cladding. Moisture is going to go through it. It's going to be, you're going to want a space between the rain screen behind it and, of course, weeps at the bottom. Stucco, same consideration. Stucco is a little more complex wall system to install than brick or stone. It's got more rules and regulations. You want to follow the Stucco Manufacturers Guidelines or the Stucco Manufacturers Association guidelines quite rigidly. There's also different codes in places in different parts of the country for thickness of stucco allowed, types of lath that are allowed over different types of substrates. There are casing beads and corners and other metal elements that have to be incorporated into a stucco system to minimize cracking and provide for exterior wall movement. And it's extremely important to follow all of those considerations. Stucco assemblies typically require 2 layers of building paper behind them. First is the air and weather barrier, and the second one as a slip screen or a slip sheet. The important note here is that the rain screen drainage mat in MTI's case can replace the second layer of weather resistant barrier in that assembly. You still need 1 layer underneath because a rain screen is not an air and weather barrier. It's a rain screen. Use a ventilated weep screed or something similar and a moisture diverter at the bottom of the wall so that the water doesn't run down the wall when it drains. It deflects out. And you can also consider, in concert with a rain screen, a drainage mat as made by MTI, the use of a non-metallic lath. Metal lath in coastal areas rusts and degrades quite quickly in the presence of salt air. Non-metallic or fiberglass lath has been used now for over 10 years in the stucco industry. We at MTI have figured out how to attach the non-metallic lath to the drainage mat itself. It comes delivered to the job site in a roll that's rolled out and installed per ASTM 1787 guidelines, which are the guidelines for installation of non-metallic lath. Contractors are finding that this is easy. It's a lightweight product. It's labor saving. It saves time. And again, the non-metallic lath will be less susceptible to rust and degradation, especially in climates where you have a lot of rain or salt air. Drainage mats are used more and more under siding and shingles. Again, this is an industry where the strip technology that I was talking about is fairly commonly used. You can install these strips. If you look at the small diagrams on the slide, you can install these strips in a vertical alignment along the studs for horizontal lap siding. You can install these strips horizontally aligned with the top of the lap siding. And those also you can install board and batten type siding with a horizontally placed strip, or you can use drainage mat on the entire substrate surface over the air and weather barrier underneath the siding. That type of drainage is necessary under shingles. You're not going to be able to use a siding strip of any type under a shingle assembly. These products are typically recommended deep within the literature of the respective companies in the siding business. They know that sidings like fiber cement and wood composite siding are very moisture sensitive. They may not promote the use of these products, but they will certainly accept the use of them and know that it provides a method of drainage and ventilation behind siding, which is frankly going to allow the siding to work better and last longer and keep water from penetrating the wall itself. Again, one of the main reasons the vertical strips or the horizontal strips are used is to keep the cost down. Typically, the cost of installing drainage mat is between $1 and $2 a square foot. With strips, it can be 30 cents to 75 cents a square foot. So when siding is your cladding and you're looking at a lower cost for cladding or less money in the budget for cladding, and siding is the alternative chosen, there are more cost-effective methods to still provide drainage and ventilation underneath the siding. And again, we're happy to help quote that, make recommendations, and help with your design. So those are the typical uses of drainage mats and strips and whatnot with different types of claddings. I want to take the last few minutes just to review the MTI product offering overview. This is an MTI presentation. We don't always get to tout our own products, but in this case we do. We have a full variety of drainage mats. As I said, it utilizes our patented True Channel technology, which enables the moisture to go straight down the wall and not be impeded by dots and dimples or tangled filaments. Our design does not compress the way tangled filament can often do. Our good, better, best approach is starting with a 3 mm product. We call it gravity cavity. We graduate up to thicker versions at 6 mm and 10 mm, which we call sure cavity. We have a fire-resistant sure cavity, which is compliant with the California WUI, or Wilderness and Urban Interface requirements. It's got a Class A fire rating because it's passed the E84 test. That's going to be something in fire areas that is increasingly important from both a design standpoint as well as the insurance industry. We're prepared and we're ready to offer that product, and we've offered it now for a couple of years. And our final product, our best product, which has application for all of the types of stone and stucco, is the Sure Cavity Stucco Lath, which utilizes the fire resistant Sure Cavity mat, and fiberglass lath is married to it in the manufacturing process. It's delivered all in one and saves labor, and this product is the lath itself has been used for over 10 years in the American market, and we're finding increasing awareness and demand for this product. MTI offers weeps for all applications. We talked about them. Different weep systems marry in better with different types of claddings. It's not really one size fits all. And it's important to understand the differences and the different requirements of the cladding in order to properly design for it with the weep. The weeps that we manufacture utilize the same True Channel technology, which moves water out of the wall. And we also incorporate the use of some specially designed metal fabricated products, especially for use with the stone and stucco component of our business. Weeps are typically translucent so that when they're cut off at the edge of the mortar, they blend into the mortar rather than being visible. That's a design consideration that most people find preferable to having a black weep, which you're going to see more easily. I talked a little tiny bit about the basement moisture removal products. Again, we utilize our True Channel technology to create drainage mats and a floor edging system for the inside wall. You combine that with a sump pump and the proper design of for a dry basement, and you get a very cost-effective, very simple, and effective way of removing moisture from the wet basement or the crawl space. As you would expect, any company that's in this business has developed over the years a lot of accessories and miscellaneous items. This is where the gentleman whose picture I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, this is what he loves to do and excels at. People bring us a special consideration. He designs a product, figures out how to make it or have it made, delivers it as the solution to that particular problem. And if there's a commercial application for it, which there usually is, goes into our product offering as an accessory for renovation, or a way of keeping mortar from falling into the spaces between the block when you're installing a CMU wall, or various things. I would invite you to visit our website at www.mtidry.com. The website is very easy to navigate. Everything is there under applications or wall types. We've got a variety of details, and probably over 200 hyperspec details, which you can cut and paste and apply into your detailed drawings or incorporate into specifications. And everything that you need to get water out of the wall cavity, no matter what cladding you're using, can be provided by MTI. We, to the degree that we can, we incorporate material in our drainage mat and non-metallic weeps that's made from post-consumer recycled content. All of the black products that we make, the gravity cavity and sure cavity products, fall into this category. The fire-resistant product is not made from recycled content. It's actually a polyester rather than a polystyrene. We're working on figuring out a way to see if our supplier of that can incorporate recycled material into it. We are constantly looking for ways to be a better steward. We do have minimal manufacturing waste in the plant that I showed you earlier. You could eat off the floor of that plant. It's clean. All of our waste is recycled, nearly 100%. And that we feel is sort of the minimum that we can do, and certainly an essential element for any manufacturer to consider in terms of planet prosperity and the people who work for us. Perhaps the most important thing for last, design and specification assistance. Many of you are architects or in the design community. Our information about our products is available through architectural marketing alliances and platforms we use, such as Acelab, such as RCAT, such as Spec Like. Many of you are incorporating those. We do webinars when we're able to and when we're invited to. Our website is robust and easy to navigate. There are videos showing the application of almost every product we manufacture and sell. Our hyperspecs details contain over 200 details for typical design considerations for all types of siding and cladding. And we have in-house services on request. Call us on our 800 number. We'll be happy to help you create a detail, perhaps review a detail you've created, and just want to make sure that we as a manufacturer involved in the wall cavity design thinks it works. And we have samples whenever they're needed or desired, anywhere in the country. Right now, we're not offering our own CEU, but we belong to the Rain Screen Association in North America. And we are able to offer, and will soon offer it online, which is a more encompassing discussion of the entire exterior wall, really incorporating elements from the air and weather resistant barrier out through the different types of claddings. It talks about a number of different wall assemblies that also include rail systems and heavy stone claddings that are typically mounted onto those types of attachments. It's a more technical, detail-oriented presentation, but if you are interested in that, you can contact us and we can either provide it for your firm, or soon you'll be able to access it yourself on the website. So just a quick review. What I want you to remember about MTI Dry from today is that we are very experienced in our industry. We've got over 35 years of experience. We're made in the USA, which, that's important to us. It's becoming a more important consideration economically, whether we like it or not. Our products are distributed nationwide. We have a full variety of moisture mitigation solutions. We utilize technology that we believe is superior. And we try to keep in mind at all times a simple and straightforward approach to the challenge. At the opening of the presentation, I talked about the biggest challenge that an architect faces is not keeping water out of the building, but it's getting water out. Once it gets in, we think we've got a very effective way of helping you design for that. And our technical assistance is readily available to assist you in that endeavor. I have nothing further to say. I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you for coming today, and I'll be here for questions for a while and certainly available on our 800 number if there are further questions. Thank you very much.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Tony, for a great presentation. We do have a few questions. Before we dive into those, just going to show everyone real quick a few things to note for after today's webinar. You will also receive a follow-up email from Acelab recapping all of this, but just to make sure everybody knows where to access some additional resources. So I'm going to take over screen share real quick, Tony. All right, so we dropped this link in the chat for everybody. I saw a few folks in the Q&A asking for things like spec files. So everyone who signs up for today's webinar has a free Acelab account. You can dig into this more, book some time with our team if you're interested in diving a little bit deeper. But today, if you just want to grab some more resources from MTI, you can head over to this page with the link we shared in the chat. Open up any one of these product pages, and right here on the left or on the right-hand side, you'll have a button to download spec files. You can also scroll down to view some more downloadable documents down here as well. So in case you need to grab some of that after today's event, this is a great place to do so. Last thing I'll mention is we do have a poll open right now. If you would like to let us know that you want to be connected with MTI directly after today's webinar, go ahead and fill out that poll. We'll make a conversation for you on your Acelab account. You will receive an email about any new messages through Acelab. You can respond directly to those emails, so works like a normal email communication. But in case you want to jump onto Acelab's platform to view any other open messages that you might have, you can click this little conversation icon at the top right. That'll take you to your conversation page. You can see any pending requests, any new manufacturer conversations. So this is a great place to come keep your communication all organized along with your product research. All right, I'll stop that there and we'll get into some questions. If you have a question yet and you haven't submitted it to the Q&A, feel free to drop it in there now. If we don't have some time to get to it today, we will have some time to follow up with you after today's webinar. All right, Tony, I'm going to just kind of start at the top and we'll work through what we can get through. How's that sound?
That's fine with me. I reserve the right to punt
Yes,
questions
definitely.
for further discussion once I have the answer I want to give.
Definitely. All right. Starting off here, do you recommend inspection and testing for drainage mat install? And if so, could you share terms of reference for those?
I've actually never heard of drainage mat being tested once installed. Most of these mats are tested by accredited test labs like Intertech in order to provide ASTM guidelines. Testing it once installed is probably theoretically a good idea, but I wouldn't know how it would be done, and I've not personally heard of it being done.
Right. Next up, are the cavity detail schematics available on your website?
Yes.
Great, awesome. Do you ever do trade shows in Montreal?
I would love to do a trade show in Montreal. If that person wants to give me more details about that opportunity offline, I'd love to engage that conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that was Joanna. Feel free to drop in a few recommendations into the Q&A or follow up with Tony after today's presentation. All right. Next up, would you be willing to share a copy of the slides with folks?
Yes.
All right, great. Next one, I can't tell if this is a question or just a comment, but somebody said there is no image of above grade exterior wall. Seems like a statement, but if you had a question there and I'm misunderstanding, feel free to let us know some additional details in the Q&A. All right. Other than that, it looks like we've just got a bunch of thank yous in the Q&A. So I'll give everyone another moment or so, see if there are any final questions that come up. We will also have a quick post-event survey as you're leaving today's webinar. If you have some time to fill that out, that would be super helpful for us. You can leave any last-minute questions there as well, and also let us know, how relevant this webinar was to your practice area. Any other feedback that you might have is super helpful for us. All right. From Joanna again about those trade shows. She believes that Salon Contech is one show and she can send more afterwards. All right, awesome. Well, with that, it looks like, yep, we're just getting some more thank yous. So appreciate everyone so much for coming out today. Thank you, Tony, for such a great comprehensive presentation. And we look forward to following up with you after today's event.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a good one.